So what's happening is that in the stratosphere, which is about 30 kilometers from the ground, so pretty high up over Antarctica,
Scientists have discovered a secret buried beneath the frozen tundra of Antarctica, a 12,000-year-old structure. The mysterious structure, hidden under layers of ice and snow, has upended our understanding of Antarctica's past and may hold clues to human civilization. But what exactly is this ancient structure, and what secrets does it hold? Join us to find out. Beneath the ice. It began in the coldest and most isolated part of the planet. A group of researchers from the British Antarctic Survey, together with scientists from the University of California and Norway's Polar Institute, were not looking for lost civilizations or ancient secrets. They were studying the slow movement of the Antarctic ice sheet using the newest ground-penetrating radar systems. But during one of their deep scans across a remote section of East Antarctica, far from any station or flight route, their screens showed something that no one expected. At first, it looked like just another cluster of strange echoes caused by shifting ice layers. But as the radar swept over the same spot again, the pattern grew clearer. The lines beneath the ice were too even, too straight, and too perfectly aligned to be random. The anomaly appeared to stretch for hundreds of meters under more than 2 kilometers of frozen ice. It had defined angles and repeating geometry, something nature rarely creates in such precision. The scientists paused, staring at the image. What they were seeing seemed impossible. The next weeks were filled with restless work. The team set up camp close to the site, their tents surrounded by a world of endless white silence. They brought in seismic sensors and satellite-based instruments to verify the radar readings. Each device confirmed the same thing. There was something solid and symmetrical deep beneath the surface. Gravity readings even hinted at unusual density, suggesting that the buried object was made of material far heavier than ice or compacted snow. The scientists compared data from different angles and depths, running it through advanced software to rule out imaging errors. The more they checked, the stronger the mystery became. Collecting reliable data in such a place was not easy. The ice was over 2 kilometers thick and many thousands of years old. It was layered like the pages of a frozen book, each telling a story of ancient snowfalls, volcanic ash, and climate changes. The radar pulses had to travel through each of those layers, and any tiny distortion, like trapped air or sudden melting, could twist the signals. They repeated the process for weeks, sometimes losing power when storms rolled across the camp. Every piece of equipment had to be recalibrated again and again in the sub-zero air. Yet the structure beneath remained constant, clear, and hauntingly deliberate. The scientists drilled shallow cores nearby to collect samples. The ice showed typical patterns of freezing and compression, but something unusual appeared near the depth where the signals began to change. The ice crystals grew larger and more uniform, as if the area below had once been warmed slightly, perhaps by a structure emitting heat or affecting the environment around it. They used isotope analysis to estimate the layers' ages and realized that the surrounding ice was roughly 12,000 years old, placing the object's burial near the end of the last ice age. Then came the challenge of interpreting what exactly they were seeing. The images suggested sharp corners and long corridors, resembling a rectangular network of walls or chambers. The formation extended for several hundred meters in both directions, lying flat on a base that reflected radar waves differently from the rest of the ice bed. The density maps hinted at solid stone rather than frozen sediment. To ensure this was not an illusion caused by overlapping echoes, the team used seismic waves, tiny vibrations that bounced through the ground. The returning signals matched the radar pattern almost perfectly, confirming that the shape truly existed and was not a data error. Still, many scientists remained cautious. In a field where nature often mimics man-made patterns, extraordinary claims demand careful proof. They shared their raw data with independent groups from Germany, Japan, and New Zealand. Each group analyzed it separately, applying different processing models. All reached the same conclusion: the geometric pattern was real. But could it have been formed naturally? Geologists proposed several explanations. Some said it might be the remnants of a volcanic intrusion, frozen into regular shapes by the slow cooling of magma. Others suggested that ice pressure could have carved symmetrical fractures in the bedrock over time. A few even mentioned the possibility of a buried meteorite impact. Each idea was tested and debated, but none could fully explain the uniform layout or the clear right angles seen on the radar scans. As verification continued, dating became the next major task. The surrounding ice layers were carefully examined through trapped gas bubbles and isotopic ratios of oxygen. These measurements corresponded to a timeline that ended roughly 12 millennia ago, at the end of the Younger Dryas period, a time of sudden global warming after the long ice age. The sediment samples extracted from thin melt layers above the anomaly matched that same era, suggesting the site had been buried soon after that climate shift. To check for errors, scientists compared these findings with ice core records from other Antarctic regions. The results lined up almost perfectly, strengthening the estimate. Even with a margin of uncertainty, the evidence pointed to something that had been in place long before modern civilization. As the data grew, so did the silence around the camp. The team members stopped making casual jokes. Each scan brought sharper images. Each test confirmed more details. The structure, whatever it was, had endured 12,000 years of crushing ice and shifting climate. Its straight corridors and symmetrical design seemed frozen in time, preserved by nature's hardest element. But what does this structure say about our civilization? Stick around to find out. The mystery beneath. The discovery beneath the Antarctic ice brought more questions than answers. As scientists studied the strange geometric formation hidden under more than 2 kilometers of frozen layers, the world began to wonder what it could mean. Every scan, every test, and every layer of data pointed to one fact: it was real. But its purpose, origin, and makers remained unknown. From the first moment the images appeared on the radar screens, researchers started forming theories, each more fascinating than the last. The first and most debated idea was that the structure might have been built or shaped by humans long ago. This became known as the civilization hypothesis. If true, it would mean that people, or some early form of them, once reached Antarctica thousands of years before anyone thought possible. The end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, was a time of major climate change and rising seas. Could a lost civilization have lived there before the ice claimed the land? Some scientists pointed out that the shape of the structure, its sharp angles and even walls, resembled early forms of architecture seen in other ancient parts of the world. The thought that humans could have once settled near the southernmost continent challenged everything we believed about early exploration and migration. Another theory reached even further into the unknown. Some experts began to explore the non-human hypothesis. This idea suggested that the structure might not have been made by humans at all, but by another form of intelligent life. Not necessarily something from the stars, but perhaps a species that existed long before recorded history, one that vanished without a trace. This theory remained more speculative, but the perfect geometry and massive scale of the formation made it difficult to dismiss completely. Others believed that the structure might be the result of ancient geological activity that simply looked artificial, but the patterns were so exact that many still questioned that explanation. Then came the more traditional approach, the natural formation hypothesis. Many scientists preferred this explanation because it stayed within the known laws of nature. Antarctica is home to countless strange formations created by ice movement, volcanic activity, and pressure over millions of years. The slow folding of glaciers, the shifting of tectonic plates, or even the freezing of lava flows could sometimes create shapes that appear artificial to the human eye. The continent also hides volcanic ridges, 008 to 007 subglacial mountains, and deep valleys that were formed long before humans ever walked the Earth. Could the structure simply be another one of nature's illusions, an accidental masterpiece shaped by time, pressure, and frozen storms? Still, there was another possibility, the hybrid hypothesis. This idea joined both science and mystery together. It suggested that the formation might have started as a natural feature, perhaps an outcrop of rock or an ancient crater, and later been shaped or used by early humans. If the ice was thinner, thousands of years ago, parts of Antarctica might have been exposed, offering land and shelter before it was covered again. There was also speculation that a large meteorite impact could have left a crater that ancient people later found and altered, leaving behind patterns mistaken today for architecture. This theory allowed for both natural and human influences, making it one of the most balanced ideas among the researchers. If any of these theories proved true, the implications would be enormous. It would mean that during the end of the Ice Age, when much of the planet was still frozen, humans or their ancestors might have reached the edges of Antarctica. It would suggest that ancient explorers traveled by sea or across ice bridges, surviving in the harshest conditions imaginable. The discovery could change how we understand migration, intelligence, and adaptation. It could also reveal what Antarctica was really like 12,000 years ago, possibly warmer, with stretches of exposed ground and flowing water, a land not yet locked under its endless sheet of ice, beneath the white silence. For centuries, Antarctica has been seen as a frozen wilderness, vast, untouched, and timeless. But the discovery of a structure buried deep beneath its ice has forced scientists to rethink everything they thought they knew about this silent continent and the people who once walked the Earth. To understand why this find is so powerful, we must first look back at what we truly know about Antarctica's past, and what we still do not. Long before it became a world of endless ice, Antarctica was very different. During the last ice age, glaciers stretched across much of the planet, locking away oceans and creating land bridges that connected continents. But even then, Antarctica's climate was not constant. It went through long cycles of freezing and thawing, known as glacial and interglacial periods. In some of these warmer times, parts of the continent might have been free from ice, covered with rock, vegetation, and flowing water. Scientists studying ice cores have found evidence that temperatures in certain regions once allowed liquid water to exist, and that the massive ice sheet we know today has expanded and shrunk many times over thousands of years. This fragile balance between freezing and melting shaped not only Antarctica's surface, but also the story of life that might have touched its edges. While Antarctica froze, human civilization was still young. Yet archaeology has shown that prehistoric people were far more capable than we once imagined. Thousands of years ago, humans traveled through harsh and frozen lands, building shelters, crafting tools, and hunting across ice plains in regions like Siberia, Alaska, and Greenland. They survived long winters, moved with herds, and even built temporary settlements in extreme cold. Sea levels were much lower then, exposing wide coastlines and pathways now hidden beneath the ocean. These migration routes connected lands that today seem distant and unreachable. If people could thrive in those severe northern climates, could they have reached the far southern reaches of the world when parts of Antarctica were still open land? The idea no longer seems impossible. Stories passed down through generations also speak of lost lands and forgotten ages. Many ancient cultures told tales of great civilizations swallowed by the sea, of islands that vanished after powerful floods. While these stories have often been dismissed as myths, they reflect memories of real natural disasters that shaped early human history. If there was ever a time when Antarctica's edges were warmer and habitable, such stories of lost lands might carry distant echoes of real events, preserved in legend rather than written record. Antarctica has long hidden more than ice. Over the years, scientists have discovered mountain ranges buried beneath its frozen crust, ancient river valleys, and even living ecosystems sealed away in darkness for millions of years. Lake Vostok, for example, lies trapped under nearly 4 kilometers of ice and holds microbial life unlike anything found elsewhere on Earth. Fossils buried deep within its rock layers show that the continent once supported forests and animals. Each of these discoveries reminded scientists that Antarctica still holds secrets capable of changing what we know about life, climate, and time itself. But this new discovery, the 12,000-year-old structure, goes beyond science as usual. If it truly was built or shaped by intelligent hands, it would mean that humans, or a civilization like them, reached the frozen south long before recorded history began. That alone would rewrite the entire timeline of human development. It would show that early humans were not limited to simple tools and wandering tribes, but could explore, build, and possibly even trade across distances that once seemed unimaginable. It would also force scientists to revisit their understanding of climate history. If such a structure once stood above the surface, then Antarctica must have been far warmer and more open only 12,000 years ago, a blink of an eye in geological time. This could mean that global temperature changes and ice movements happened far more suddenly than we believed, The finding would reshape climate models and perhaps explain ancient sea level rises that flooded coastal settlements around the world. The discovery might also transform geology itself. If Antarctica's ice once retreated far enough to reveal solid ground, it would mean the ice sheet has been less stable than scientists assumed. This could help predict how it might behave in the future as the planet warms again. A glimpse into the past might therefore hold warnings for our own future. From an anthropological view, the structure's very existence raises deep questions. Whoever made it, if it was indeed made, had knowledge of building techniques, planning, and survival in extreme conditions. They might have used tools or materials now buried forever. Somewhere under the ice, fragments of their life could remain, tools, art, or symbols waiting to be found. Each piece could reveal how they lived, what they believed, and why they disappeared. Beyond science, this discovery touches something deeply human. It reminds us how fragile our understanding of history can be. If a forgotten civilization once existed in a place we thought impossible, then what else might we have overlooked? Could entire chapters of our story be hidden beneath the ice, the sand, or the sea? The thought alone changes how we see ourselves, not just as modern people looking back at history, but as part of a vast, mysterious timeline that still holds many secrets. But to make history, the team had to overcome some struggles. Stay with us. The secrets and struggles that divide the world. The discovery of a strange 12,000-year-old structure beneath Antarctica's frozen layers has shaken the scientific world. What should have been a quiet moment of study has turned into one of the most heated debates in modern history. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the mystery beneath the ice is not just about the past. It's about the present, power, and the truth itself. For generations, scientists have worked to understand the untouched world beneath Antarctica's surface. But this discovery challenges almost everything we thought we knew. 032 to 042. Instead of finding only ancient ice and rock, researchers have stumbled upon geometric patterns that appear deliberate, too perfect, too symmetrical to be random. Yet as news of this finding spreads, a storm brews among experts, politicians, and the public. Not everyone welcomes the idea of an ancient structure beneath the ice. For many leading scientists, the discovery sounds too extraordinary to believe. They argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Established theories about human history and Earth's climate timeline are suddenly under fire. Glaciologists, archaeologists, and geologists debate fiercely over whether the structure is man-made or just a quirk of nature. For some, admitting that humans, or any intelligent beings, could have existed in Antarctica 12,000 years ago feels impossible. It would mean rewriting vast portions of history and challenging decades of accepted research. Many institutions, fearing ridicule or loss of credibility, prefer to proceed with caution, demanding stronger evidence before making any claims. As researchers dig deeper, they encounter puzzling inconsistencies. The radar scans show shapes that defy simple explanation: straight lines, sharp angles, and repeating formations buried beneath miles of compact ice. But there are also problems. No artifacts have yet been recovered, no signs of tools, bones, or settlements nearby. Some suggest the patterns could be caused by ice movement or pressure, creating illusions of design. Others believe the layers of ice might have distorted the readings, making natural formations look artificial. Still, a small group of experts insist that something intelligent lies beneath. The data, though incomplete, points toward purpose, not accident. The truth seems to slip further away with every new finding. Each answer only brings more questions. The discovery also stirs trouble beyond science. Antarctica is protected by an international treaty that forbids ownership or exploitation. But if this structure turns out to be ancient and artificial, who does it belong to? Which nation, if any, has the right to explore or preserve it? Environmentalists fear that digging or drilling could harm the fragile ecosystem. Governments eye the potential political and cultural value of such a find. There is quiet tension among countries with research bases in Antarctica, each trying to secure their piece of the mystery while maintaining diplomatic calm. The line between science and politics begins to blur. In the shadows of discovery, rumors grow. Some believe that certain powers, political, academic, or even corporate, might prefer to keep the truth hidden. If the structure truly dates back 12,000 years, it could shake belief systems, challenge religious timelines, and undermine the trust placed in long-held scientific narratives. Others whisper about missing data, restricted access, and funding cuts that conveniently appear when research becomes too controversial. Whether these claims are true or not, they add another layer of tension to an already divided field. The mystery beneath the ice begins to feel less like a scientific puzzle and more like a guarded secret. If the discovery proves true, the consequences are enormous. Humanity's story would have to be rewritten. It would mean that advanced civilizations existed far earlier and in far harsher places than we ever imagined. It would open a new chapter in human history, one filled with unknown journeys, forgotten knowledge, and unexplored connections. But if it turns out to be false, if the structure is nothing more than ice and rock shaped by nature, then years of research, excitement, and funding will have been wasted. Scientists who supported the claim could lose credibility, and public trust in science could weaken further. And yet, beneath all the noise, one truth remains. Something unusual is buried deep below Antarctica's frozen surface. Whether it is a lost monument, a trick of geology, or a message from a forgotten age, it refuses to be ignored. The icy continent guards its secret well. Each layer of snow and time hides not only the truth of what lies beneath, but also the fears, ambitions, and hopes of those trying to uncover it. In this frozen silence, science and mystery meet, and neither is willing to let go. Unfreezing the truth. The discovery of a strange 12,000-year-old structure beneath Antarctica has opened the door to one of the greatest scientific quests in modern history. What began as a simple radar anomaly has now become a puzzle that could change everything we know about human history, climate, and the planet itself. But before any real answers can be found, scientists must face the brutal reality of Antarctica's frozen heart, a place that guards its secrets with silence and ice. The first step is to reach the structure itself, buried beneath layers of ice thicker than mountains. Teams must drill through kilometers of solid ice using precision equipment capable of operating in freezing conditions. Subglacial robots, designed to withstand crushing pressure and extreme cold, are being prepared to slip into these narrow shafts. Once below, they will carry cameras, sensors, and samplers, hoping to capture the first clear images of the mysterious formation. Every movement is risky. The smallest mistake could destroy years of effort or damage something priceless hidden in the dark. If early findings confirm that the formation is more than natural, the next mission would focus on archaeology. Excavations under such harsh conditions are almost impossible, but researchers are determined. Using delicate robotic arms, they hope to recover samples, fragments of tools, pieces of stone, or even preserved organic material that might hold clues about who or what created the structure. Each tiny find could reveal a story buried for 12,000 years. The ice surrounding the structure is not just an obstacle, it is also a record. Within it lie microscopic traces of ancient life, dust, and chemical particles that tell the story of Antarctica's past. Geochemists and microbiologists plan to study these layers carefully. Sediments may reveal the presence of pollen or microorganisms that once lived in a warmer, greener Antarctica. Trapped DNA could even point to species long vanished. Each grain of ice could hold a whisper from an age when the continent was alive. To guide their drilling and exploration, scientists are turning to high-resolution imaging technology. Advanced radar, satellite photography, and ground-penetrating LiDAR are mapping the continent in greater detail than ever before. These tools allow researchers to see shapes and patterns beneath the ice, tracing the outlines of valleys, tunnels, and possible walls. Every new scan deepens the mystery, showing hints of design where none should exist. This effort is far too great for any single field of science. It brings together experts from geology, climatology, anthropology, and engineering. Each one adds a piece to the puzzle, connecting climate data, rock samples, and historical theories. The challenge is not only in the cold, but also in uniting minds that think differently. Collaboration becomes the key to progress. Antarctica is the hardest place on Earth to work. Bitter temperatures, endless winds, and international treaties limit access. Every permit requires negotiation. Every movement must protect the fragile environment. Funding is uncertain, and time is short. But despite these barriers, the desire to uncover the truth remains stronger than the cold. Somewhere beneath that ancient ice lies the missing piece, the answer that could reshape everything we know about the world's past. Each drill, each scan, and each breath of frozen air brings humanity one step closer to unfreezing the truth hidden deep below. But what does this mean for the future? The moment the ice spoke, the air inside the research tent was painfully still. The drilling team had been working for days, pushing through layer after layer of ancient ice, each meter bringing them closer to what had been only a distant echo on the radar. Machines hummed softly, monitors blinked, and every face was drawn with tension. The drill finally stopped, its steady vibration replaced by silence. Then came a faint sound, a hollow click that no one expected. The core sample was lifted carefully, its frozen surface glistening under the artificial light. At first, it looked like nothing but ice, but when the outer frost was brushed away, a pattern began to appear, lines too straight, too deliberate to be natural. No one spoke. The lead scientist leaned closer, and beneath the ice, a faint carving emerged, worn by time but unmistakable. It was a groove etched into what appeared to be stone. Further samples brought up more fragments, each revealing smoother surfaces and sharper angles. The realization came like a wave. They had found something built, something that did not belong to ice. The entire lab fell into a stunned silence that felt both holy and terrifying. For years, scientists had argued about what lay hidden beneath Antarctica. Many dismissed the radar readings as noise or geological illusion. But here, in the middle of nowhere, they held proof that changed everything. The data was clear, the samples undeniable. The stones were carved by intelligent hands, and they were at least 12,000 years old. The following days became a blur of testing, retesting, and sleepless nights. The evidence held steady. The carvings had tool marks, small microscopic ridges that revealed deliberate shaping. Every test confirmed that they were unlike any known geological formation. The team could hardly contain their emotions. Joy clashed with fear, fear of being wrong, fear of what this might mean. Because if these stones truly came from an ancient structure, then human history had just been rewritten in ice and silence. News spread faster than the scientists could contain it. Within hours of the first images being transmitted, headlines around the world exploded. Some called it the greatest discovery since the tombs of Egypt. Others whispered about cover-ups, lost civilizations, and secrets hidden for centuries. Social media flooded with theories, from ancient engineers to visitors from beyond Earth. The discovery that had begun with careful science now belonged to the world, tangled in excitement and mystery. In universities and research centers, debates turned fierce. Some scholars argued that the formation was natural, sculpted by pressure and melting. Others insisted that the markings were deliberate, the remnants of a forgotten people who had once walked the Antarctic plains before ice swallowed their world. Conferences were filled to capacity. Papers were written and rewritten overnight. The air of skepticism mixed with awe, because no matter what the truth turned out to be, something extraordinary had been found. Governments soon stepped in. The Antarctic Treaty, which had long protected the continent from ownership or exploitation, suddenly faced questions it had never prepared for. If the site was man-made, who had the right to study it? Could it become a World Heritage Site, preserved for all humanity? Scientists called for caution, demanding protection before the structure could be further exposed. Every move had to be weighed against environmental laws and ethical concerns. In schools, teachers struggled to explain what this meant. Textbooks that had long taught that Antarctica had always been a frozen desert were now incomplete. Children looked at maps and imagined a green continent, a place that might once have been home to people whose story had been buried for thousands of years. The discovery did not just change science, it changed imagination. It made the past feel alive again, as if the world had remembered something it had forgotten. As the weeks passed, the first clear images of the structure were released. They showed blocks of dark stone arranged in perfect alignment, far too precise to be random. The shape hinted at purpose, perhaps walls or corridors, or even a foundation. Yet what it represented remained a mystery. Some saw it as proof of a civilization that predated all known history. Others said it was nature's masterpiece, a frozen illusion. But no one could deny that the discovery had forced humanity to look deeper, not only into the ice but into itself. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.